Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Shaping EDU live event. I'm so excited to see so many of your faces here today. My name is Lara Geringer. I'm the community manager for Shaping EDU. And for those of you who are joining a Shaping EDU event for the first time, Shaping EDU is a community of dreamer, doer, drivers, change makers from around the globe, shaping the future of learning in the digital age. We host virtual and, when it's safe to do so, in-person events throughout the year. We have storytellers in residence and innovators in residence who guide the community in dreaming up actions, taking on projects, making progress, and then scaling and disseminating ideas to shape the future. We've got an online Slack community where we chat and share ideas throughout the year. And I encourage you to reach out to me or check out our website if you have any questions. We have just announced an upcoming event, the Winter Games. We will be hosting the Shaping EDU Winter Games in January. Registration is currently open. It's totally free. And we will be focusing on smart regions, smart region technology, smart learning, innovation, student voice, all sorts of things. So I'll post a link in the chat, but enough from me. Let's turn it over to Karina. Karina Branson is a visual facilitator, a graphic facilitator, an artist. She's been with the Shaping EDU community from the very beginning. And is also one of our storytellers in residence, helping to tell the story of the work that the members in the community are doing. So I'll let Karina share a little bit more about herself and get going this morning. Karina.
Thanks, Laura, for the great intro. Good morning, afternoon, evening, in middle of the night, wherever you're coming from. Thank you for joining us today. It's going to be pretty low-key. I'm going to offer some basics, and we're really going to think about practicing and answering your questions today. So again, I'm Karina, and if you'd like to drop your favorite art medium in the chat, I guess rename is unavailable, so we're on the fly. Today's goals are really to share tools with you to make your notes more visual. And it's fun, it's easy. You don't have to be an artist in order to make your notes more visual, but you can be if you'd like. I want to start off with a land acknowledgement. I'm based in Colorado, which is the traditional and unceded lands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, Sioux, and Ute. So thank you, living and working gratefully here. Go ahead, and I see everybody's muted. Thanks, we'll roll with that. If you want to turn your camera on, I'd be tickled. If you don't, also very much optional. It's just nice to see each other's faces. I'm going to be, again, sharing information, and then we're going to be practicing, and I'll be asking questions, and I see the chat is already hopping, so I'll be keeping an eye on there. Don't tickle me, Tom. And also I might miss some questions, so Laura's going to be helping me out. I am a founder and owner of ConverSketch. If you've been at any Shaping EDU events, there's a good chance you've seen me live scribing content, illustrating in real time. And I'm a Shaping EDU visual storyteller in residence this year. I see a couple others on here, so it's great to be a part of the team. And I've been practicing as a visual practitioner for about 10 years, officially. I've always enjoyed art, and I get to work with clients on 6 continents. And my wheelhouse is really more technical, scientific, academic folks. So I love taking technical information and visualizing it, making it more digestible. Go ahead, and if you haven't already, grab a tablet or a notebook if you want to go analog, to make sure that you've got something to practice with. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen and copy a Dropbox link into the chat, which has, I've got some templates in here in different formats that you can download and use for note-taking. It should be accessible to everyone. If you have issues, then I'll address the security settings afterwards, since we're in the flow now. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Of course, here we are. All right. Here we are. Awesome. So today's agenda is, again, here we are on the left. I'm Karina, graphic facilitator, and I want to start by talking a little bit about the science behind visual note-taking and why it can be helpful as a tool in your toolbox. Then we'll get to the basics, so things like size, color, containers, and layout. We'll talk about tools today, although this is not going to be a tutorial in the workflow and how-to of any specific tool. And then really the meat of today is questions and play. So awesome. I want to start off with that science I was just talking about. So, and I know the question's going to come up immediately, but we'll get to it in hardware. I'm using an iPad today, and Adobe Fresco is the program I'm drawing in. So I'm going to zoom in over here so you can see a little better. There's a lot of research behind why visuals can help us when we're thinking especially about complex content or remembering ideas. So some of the ways that it helps us is with cognitive, whoops. We'll talk about layers here too. Cognitive load, which is you can keep track of about 7 chunks of information at a time before you start losing track of things. So having this visual map and record helps you keep track of those small details and frees your mind to look for connections, think bigger or more creatively. We also can talk about dual coding theory, which is when you're engaging with different ways of learning and understanding, so visual and auditory or written and kinesthetic, you're more likely to form that memory. And also when there's an emotion attached to it, you're even more likely to remember something. So if you think of some of your strongest memories, whether they're positive or negative, there's a good chance there's a strong emotion or feeling tied in with that. So we'll talk about emoji power here. Okay, and then the final one I want to talk about is systems thinking. So having things laid out, not necessarily linear, but in a different way, and we'll talk about layouts here shortly, allows, again, your brain to just kind of think in a different way and look for those connections that might not necessarily be apparent. So before I get into anything else, I'd love to take a step back now that we've kind of gotten the science and hear from you in the chat. What brings you here today? What are you curious about around visual digital note-taking or visual note-taking? Go ahead and drop it in the chat. Systems thinking can be topic grouping or word cloud. We'll talk about that. Zoom brings you literally, figuratively, spiritually. What brings you here today? Working remotely, better collaboration in a virtual setting, being able to remember things, notes better, translating analog to virtual. We can touch on that. That's helpful. Tools, creative flow. Definitely, this year has been quite a roller coaster for me personally in terms of tapping into creativity. Gaining confidence around being artistic. Awesome. keeping interest and using it with students. Awesome. There's even more in there. Those are just a few. So, oh, I'm so excited. This is really fun. Keep it coming. I'm not going to be able to see everything, but you all will. And one thing I want to make sure to emphasize is that I'm one person. The collective wisdom of everybody in this room is way more powerful. So please feel free to share your own anecdotes, tools, strategies, ideas, because my perspective is just one. Great. Okay. So let's get into some of the very like foundational building blocks of visual note taking. So we're going to zoom on over here to the basics. So one of my favorite ways to engage folks who maybe aren't as confident as an artist is using these tools: size, colors, container, and layout. You don't have to draw a gosh darn thing, but you can use your words and the way that you're portraying them in order to create a more visual layout and to chunk information more easily. So as we're here, we've got size. So I like to, I'm going to share again my practice, which is not the way or the right way. So I like to use size. And actually, before I start sharing things, go ahead and take a look at this and see how I've used size on here. So the title, Digital Visual Notes, is the largest. So titles, and I like to use all caps for titles a lot of the time because that also creates a large scale. But sometimes if you feel playful or the content calls for it, you can do huge letters however you'd like. Then we've got these subtitles, the basics, tools, questions, and play. And then we've got the even smaller, more content. And I often tend to write in capitals because other people need to be able to read what I'm writing most of the time. And I find my personal handwriting is neater in all caps. Especially digitally. That's one of the differences I've found, that if I write in all caps in digital, it's a little bit easier to read, but you can do uppercase or lowercase. Whoops, I'm just doing lowercase and lowercase. Awesome, so size, really important. Awesome, so again, there's no drawing here. It's just using the size, and you could use this. Think about the way that Word document outlines are formatted when you can do titles, subtitles, and content. So just channel your inner Word document outline. Don't do that. Or do if it helps you. One other little quick trick to make a title a little bit fancier or a word a little bit fancier is you can add serifs to it. So that means little lines at the end to make it look a little serify there on that title. So again, simple but effective. And something this is the only thing I'm going to say because we only have an hour, is it is important if other people are going to be reading your notes to make sure that they're legible. And I know some of you might be groaning on the inside, but really practice can help you. And sometimes it might take a rewrite or really intentional and slowing down. So give yourself space to do that. Okay, let's talk about color. You can see I've also used color here to chunk information. So it's easy for your eye to see the different pieces that we're going to be talking about. So color can be used to show, to chunk info. It can be used to show a feeling or emotion. It can be used to draw attention. So let's do a little experiment here. I'm going to go ahead and draw this scribble on here, this chunk of red. And in the chat, tell me what you think or feel when you see this color. Energy, stop sign, important, important, double important. Blood, mess up, bad, mistake, my eye is drawn to it. Colorblind, hey, thank you, Jenny, for that vulnerability. I apologize for that. And that's really important to think about who your audience is and how they might be interacting with the color. And if you know that you might have folks in the audience, really talking with them or doing your research ahead of time so that you're putting everybody, supporting everybody. Warning, danger. So you can see that there's a whole range of connections with this color, from good to important to urgent. Danger, Will Robinson. So thinking about color, another thing that's important around color is think about cultural connections and the group that you're working with. And if color, a specific color has an important meaning, whether positive or negative, think about how you can leverage that with the content and the messages. And if you're doing it for yourself, you know, using colors that you like, and using colors that feel good to you. I don't know what the hex of that red color is. I will get to you later. Let's see. One other thing about color is, well, now it's gone. I'm thinking about the hex of that color. I just kind of dragged to a random bright red. Oh, is it really can spark a memory around what's going on. So if you're when we ever go back to offsite meetings together in the room, or if there's branding associated, color can be really powerful to spark those memories. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so adding dimension to visual diagrams using only black and white due to publication limitations definitely can be hard. Looking to graphic novels and comic strip folks for inspiration and seeing how they do it. You know, copy and steal everything and make it your own. So look at what great people are doing who you admire, practice in that way, and then make it your own, so you're not plagiarizing. Okay, any thoughts about colors? Excellent. Appreciate sharing resources people like. I'd be happy to share some more visual note-taking resources in the chat toward the end. Okay, I'm going to get on to containers. You can see there's some containers on this page. I've got the blobs of blue. I've got the white blobs around the titles. I've got the swoopy stripies. It's very technical language here today, by Digital Visual Notes, the title. And I've got this speech bubble over here. So we can use containers to chunk information. And one thing I want to drive home is it's so tempting, especially with digital mediums, to be attached to perfection. And I would like to encourage you to let go of that, because we're human. And I think one of the most interesting parts of having somebody taking visual notes is that it's not perfect. It's human. You don't know what they're going to draw. You don't know how they're going to do it. And you see that they're creating it with you. It's not like clip art, which is predictable. So, so containers, imperfection is, I'm going to put it in quotes. Imperfection is okay. I love a man in Australia named Ray Eckerman. He's a great inspiration. He does these really great lines, and I'll show you what I learned from him, is that when you're drawing a straight line, it's nearly impossible unless you've got a ruler or a ruler tool, which we do have in digital media. Here in Fresco, it's in the lower right-hand corner here. And so I can use this as my straight edge and tap it again for it to disappear. But I can also draw a line and make an intentional squiggle so that if it's imperfect, there's these cool, like it's very intentional. People know that it's, you know, imperfect. It's not quite totally straight. Same with shapes. I intentionally didn't try to make these anything close to a circle because it's really hard. And there's ways to practice making more perfect circles, but I just make them kind of off. Let's see, speech bubbles, one trick for those, they can be nice as a call out for an important idea or a cool quote as you're listening. I like to make the shape of the bubble first and then do the little tail. And that way where you're coming back to connect doesn't have to fit exactly perfect. So we'll do like that, and you can see it's not perfect, surprise, but I can add my tail there and it looks okay. I also like to do kind of rectangular ones around text, like the one over on my little intro illustration on the left. Let's see, clouds are also great containers for thoughts or things that are not fully formed. And again, making them interesting and different. So a lot of times I'll see people's first cloud look like that. And we can notice that all of the burbles are about the same size and shape. And if we do one little trick where we do a large one and then a couple small ones and then a medium and kind of just mix up the shapes of the burbles, this cloud is more interesting visually a little. And then you can also, you know, write into the corners and the burbles. Which brings me to when you're creating containers, you can go your own way. I would recommend writing content first and then drawing the container around it so that you don't end up with something like that. So there you go. So those are just a few interesting basic containers. You can use any shape, and there's so many fun ways to do this. Again, looking for inspiration on graphic design or other graphic recorders out there. It's really fun. Okay, layout is the last one I'm gonna talk about in the basics. And I'm just gonna touch on a few. Again, there's so many options. I'm gonna also show you, well, I'll get to that in a second. Okay, I wanna spend all day with you people. Okay, so you can do, I like to actually start in my notebook sketching out different layouts before I do a live graphic recording job, once I have the idea of what they might be talking about. So you can do a mind map where your topic is in the center and then you've got supporting topics around it. I often find myself gravitating towards journey maps or like a landscape kind of, and it shows kind of the way that you're flowing. You can also keep it real simple and do, you know, chunks, blocks with bullet points. You'll see here, as I'm talking with you, I've got bulleted lists. So that's another way. Lists. And then another one that I really like is quadrants. And you see there, I pulled the little squiggle line in there. And even if you don't make the matrix on the page, keeping in mind, like, okay, I know that there's 4 speakers or 4 parts to this lecture. I'll just break it up into the quadrants. And then another thing to keep in mind is our culture in the United States, we read left to right, top to bottom. So when all else fails, I'll start in the upper left and move to the right. It's also our nature to look to the top for important things. So maybe reserving, whether you do it in your mind or actually on here, space on the top for key ideas, or maybe it's along here. And this is can be a challenge to reserve that white space, but then at the end you can make sure really important things or things that are resonating rise to the top. Okay, so those are just a few techniques. I want to get into the tools. Time is a flying. Oops. The beauty / curse of digital is that we can resize things. So we're just going to go ahead and move that over here and get over into the tools, which I know is something that folks are interested in. Okay, I'm going to zoom in, so hold on to your socks. All right. So again, what I'm using today is an iPad Pro and the pencil. I have used a Surface in the past and just found at the time that the tools that I wanted weren't available on there. Now, things that was like 2 years ago, and in technology time, that's a lifetime ago. So I'm not an expert because I haven't kept up in that. So if you use a Surface or another Android or other tool and have some great recommendations, please share those in the chat. So yeah, iPad, it's real technically propped up with my headphone case here so that it's on an angle like that. Whoops. And I've really enjoyed it. There's some great shortcuts with 2 fingers is undo and 3 fingers is redo. And yes, I find myself on my notepad paper, like tapping with 2 fingers to undo something. It's very strange. So I do love paper, which brings me to over here. You definitely fantastic using paper. I think there's a time and a place, and I think somebody mentioned Austin Kleon in here. There's a great podcast where he's talking about when he likes to use analog tools and when he likes to use digital tools. Hurry slowly. I'm just going to put that in. Hurry slowly, Austin Kleon podcast. He's interviewed. So this is paper and an IPEVO document cam, which is this kind of arm thing that I have here sketched out. And these are great, very popular in education, because essentially, instead of my camera here in my face tile, you can connect the IPEVO and change the camera to be that, so that students or whoever your participants are can see you in the corner. And I should add on here that little gem, which I'll get to in a second. You can also use a phone on a tripod over either your tablet or paper. And then this is an adapter. It's a capture card. And when you have a capture card connected, again, you can change the camera in whatever video conferencing program that you're using, plug it into your tablet, HDMI to the computer, and then again, instead of my face, you get the canvas. And if I try to do that while I'm screen sharing, it goes haywire. So I'm not going to do that right now. Let's see, what do we have in here? Autodesk Sketchbook and Surface with pencil stylus. Yes, when I used the Surface, I loved Sketchbook. Sketchbook, and I think Pro is now free. Wacom, Wacom, I don't know how you're supposed to say it. Tablets, really great. Cintiqs, I know some people don't like them. Illustrators tend to really like them. They're so much bigger, which is great because when I have my phone over my iPad to try to show that there's an actual person drawing, it's so small and distorted. So the Cintiq can be great because it's like 3 times the size of the iPad. Let's see. Apple lets you use an iPad with a Mac as a tablet with a Mac. Yeah, Sketchbook Pro is free. Sketch by Bohemian Coding on your laptop or desktop. I've never even heard of that one. So very cool. Keep it coming. I love it. In terms of programs, like I said, am using Fresco by Adobe. So if you have an Adobe Creative Cloud subscription, awesome tool to play with. Things that I love is currently I'm using a vector brush. So I can resize this to any scale. I'm going to zoom in again. And you can see we don't lose any of the quality. Fabulous. I love the watercolor brushes. OMG. Okay. Let's just take a minute and appreciate how it bleeds. It bleeds. It bleeding bleeds the pixels. There's oil paints too, which are, it's just, I mean, you could spend way too much time on here trying to get it to do what you want or playing with what's possible. So I do really enjoy that feature and oil paints. I love the integration with other Adobe products. Things I'm not crazy about are you can see all of my tools no matter what. And there's a few, like they don't have like an automatic selection. So it'd be really great. I'll show you Procreate here in a second. They have an automatic selection tool, which makes it really easy to select shapes and words. So this is Procreate. Things I love. The name just cracks me up. I love Project Canvas, and I'll show you in a second. I love the shapes and auto select. And I should say that Fresco is very beta. It just came out and they're adding more tools all the time. So nice thing about Adobe is they are really good at support and editing. So, okay, I'm gonna switch over to Procreate. It's gonna be a little swoopy, so maybe close your eyes for a second. Okay. So immediately you can see that the canvas takes up the whole projection. Really love that. I'm in project mode. So I'm zooming in and out and you can't see that. You can't see my tools. Really appreciate that. Something else I like, love it. The shapes. So when you do want to be a little bit more perfect about your shapes in Procreate, I can draw a circle and keep my pencil down. I just hold it down and it perfectifies my shape. So I can do that with a triangle. I just keep the tip on there. I don't know why it keeps disappearing up here. It just kind of clips or snaps to being the straight lines. And then same with straight lines. So that's really nice. And then if you use the selection tool down, oh, you can't see the tools. At the bottom, I choose automatic and I can select a few things. I'm actually gonna turn off projection so you can see. So at the bottom, you can freehand select, which is like a lasso tool, which you have in Fresco. or you can automatic select and just tap the shape. And then if I go straight to my brush, we'll do a different color. It masks it. So there's tools to do that in Fresco now, masking. This is just really fast, easy, and intuitive if you're not an Adobe geek. Okay, I'm going to switch back and keep us moving along. Finally is other visual programs like Mural, Miro, why they have almost the same name, couldn't tell yet, or Jamboard, which are like virtual whiteboard programs. So you don't have to have any sort of drawing, but you can make a visual layout. Yes, Procreate's iPad only. That was one of the reasons I got it at the time. Fresco didn't exist and I needed Procreate. Oh, Procreate and Fresco both record all of your brush strokes so that we'll have a time lapse at the end playing through everything. So that was a real selling point for me. I like to make animated video, illustrated videos, and needed it to record that. And Sketchbook didn't do that at the time, but they might now. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to stop this share and actually stop share with you. A mind map on Miro. So can you see my screen? I'm looking for a physical. Okay, I saw a nod. Thank you. So you can see here, this is a mind map template. There are a gajillion templates available. I chose mind map, and it's really easy to click on, excuse me, content. You can change the tool, you can change the color. You can click on these pluses to add another wing. And then you can click on another plus, sub content, and change the color right away. So it's really easy to make a visual map that you don't have to do any drawing, but it creates that hierarchy, spatial layout. Great. Oh yeah, Lucid chart works too. I like to work with my clients to create custom templates in my drawings and make it a PNG so there's no background, and embed them here. So you can make your own with your drawing app, embed it here, and then have people using sticky notes and doing all that good stuff like you might, and it can be really powerful tool. Jamboard is free if you have access to Google. I know some agencies don't. Miro and Mural, I think there's free versions with your university. If you have a university connection, you might get a paid license. Let's see. Yep, so Tom, I think concept mapping, this maybe gets at that. Yes, you can do it collaboratively. Yes, thank you, Lara. You can use these tools, all three of those, for synchronous work together. So if I were to be so bold as to invite all of you crazy visual thinkers to this Miro board, we could all be in here clustering, adding stuff, working together in real time or asynchronously. So that's really neat. Yeah, Miro is really cool. I feel like many of these tools there's just so much to learn and it's easy to get overwhelmed. So when I'm working with clients, I always try to ask them to take a step back with me and think about what's our goal, and then think about the tools that can help us get to the goal. Okay, back to my outline notes. Okay, let's stop that share and reshare yon iPad. That's another thing I like about the iPad is you can, in Zoom, one of the options for sharing is iPhone/iPad via AirPlay. So I am wirelessly sharing right now, just mirroring my screen. So that's really great. Zoom is an awesome platform for that. Some other platforms don't support it. So I use my little camera card to put it in the corner. Okay, great. So I'm gonna pause. I saw a question up here I wanted to answer and ask the group for, and also get more into like some practice and Q&A. So the question is, do you come across folks who feel it's not professional enough? And how do you modify your style to bridge the gap? Also, do you have specific hand grips that you use for different purposes? I don't know what hand grips are, so probably not. In terms of the professional style, I show people examples of my work, and if it's not a good fit, then it's not a good fit. I can clean some stuff up, maybe don't use watercolor brushes, make it cleaner, but really establishing those expectations up front is important. And this is more, I think, like in a client freelancer context. And I also look at their branding, but really just kind of show them up front what they're getting. I also like to have discovery calls with my clients and take visual notes while we're talking and do this. I share my screen in a Zoom call, and then they see the power of it. So it can be really challenging, always communicating the value of this work. And I love changing skeptical minds when they see their ideas visualized. But really, I just kind of own my style. And I think that most people are human and they like it. I'll try to adapt to make it the best fit. Negative space. Susan, you're in my head. I was meaning to talk about that before. So her question is, can you talk about the power of negative space between concepts, and how that impacts flow? Let me get a drink of water. And if anybody else has ideas, please feel free to share in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself. So negative space is these white chunks of space here on this canvas that give our eyes kind of a space to breathe. I know that's a strange phrase, but also to chunk information. So sometimes it's not possible to have negative space because you're capturing content, and the goal is really to help people see in real time all of the complexity. So it's just a total packed canvas. And sometimes leaving that negative space intentionally for, the unknown, for a break, for holding space, or to chunk information. It's always a challenge personally. If anybody else has thoughts on negative space, white space, go ahead and unmute yourself and I'll call on you, or put it in the chat. Can you also touch on kerning? Virginia, I am not an expert on handwriting and typography and all of that, but I'm going to put letslettertogether.com in, oops, I sent that as a private message, sorry. Letslettertogether.com. My friend Heather Martinez, she is she just loves lettering and can geek out and talk about kerning and all of the other technical things. So if anybody else has that expertise, please drop your knowledge. Building layers to group like things, hiding, exposing layers, helpful when talking about a lot of things. Yes, excellent, Nicholas, or Nick, whatever you prefer. I wanted to touch on how I build layers. So over here on the side, you can see I'm going to hide them for a second to make them obvious. These are my layers. So I like to have a logo layer and signature. So that's at the bottom. I like to have, well, in this case, I did this white over the black at the top. So I have my white text layer. And then typically, I'm just going to merge this down. I don't know why it was a different one. Then I'll do a black and white layer, a color layer below it, and sometimes have an opacity layer or a shading layer. But my go-to is like the logo layers at the very top so that it doesn't get covered up, because layers at the top appear on top of other things. And then black and white, and then color are my layers. And so Nicholas, if you want to unmute yourself and kind of talk about how you use layers, I would welcome that.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I use Illustrator to do what you're doing. And what I find is if I'm drawing stuff, it can get really cluttered quickly. And I find if I then group things and put them into their own layers, like items into their own layers, I will, it gives me the ability to hide and unhide things very quickly. I won't have like a text layer for the entire document because I may have grouped ideas where if all the text is on a single layer, it hides the entire page of text. So what I'll do is I'll put ideas into layers rather than text into layers, and then I hide and unhide them that way. That's pretty much it.
Thank you. That's another, like I said, there's no one way or right way to do it. Sometimes I'll do like the tools chunk will be, I'll have a black and white layer and then a color layer, and they'll be grouped together so that I can move that whole thing around or resize it or, you know, play with the layout. So awesome recommendation. That's one other thing that I am looking forward to improving on Fresco is when I create a layer group by dragging one layer on top of another. You can see now it has kind of some lines below it, but I can't tell what's on each layer unless I tap into them, maybe. There we go. And so then I can see them. In Fresco, it kind of nests them, kind of like it does in other Adobe programs like Illustrator and Photoshop, where you can see them kind of in an outline. So I wish that it was easier to navigate between the layers. Do you connect any specific UDL checkpoints to confirm, complement your main concepts of digital notes communication? I don't know what UDL stands for, Ray. Can you enlighten me, please? Oh, someone is marking up my screen. Awesome. Excellent. We've got the annotation happening. Universal design for learning. I am not an expert in that. I don't even know what all those checkpoints are. So I would open this to the floor. Does anybody else have insights or ideas around UDL, Universal Design for Learning, complementing digital notes? Ray, if you want to private message me your email address, I can look into that and we can follow up afterwards. Laura, were you about to say something?
Well, I was just going to say that this might not be UDL checkpoints, but I know you are attentive to accessibility and clarity and trying to make your content valuable for the largest number of people.
Yeah, accessibility is tricky with visuals. It can be helpful for folks with hearing disabilities. It can also be really challenging for people with seeing disabilities. And so I'm not sure about how to embed, well, I think you can embed text in some programs so that a reader could do that. Alt text for images is important for screen readers. Yeah, compatibility with screen readers. And I love that we're having this conversation. It's definitely front of mind of late. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourselves if you'd like to ask something. Otherwise, I have something else up my sleeve for our last 10 minutes. But I really want to, if there's something that's complex that you would like to hear mine and other ideas about how to visualize it, learn to draw, or things that you're challenged with around visual notes. Specific use cases. So I have done this myself as a student, mind mapping my notes. I know professors who create more visual notes, even if it's a very bad quote drawing, as you're working and if the group is seeing the visual created, it's really powerful. I think somebody put Dan Rome in the chat box earlier as a resource. The Back of the Napkin is a really great book for showing that really simple drawings can communicate complex concepts. Let's see. And I use it for also, oh, thanks, Casey is holding up the back of the napkin in his window. Thanks, Casey. I use this across sectors with local governments, with research groups, with Fortune 200 companies, with all sorts of folks to help them with strategic planning, to brainstorm creatively, to get a group on the same page about current state and where they want to go, to create shared language around complexity. So there's all sorts of applications. Really, the use cases are only limited by your imagination. What tool program is best for a digital beginner? I don't know. What do you all think? Drop it in. What's your favorite tool? I think maybe Procreate is really intuitive. Do you have any recommendations for drawing apps on older iPads? I don't know. I think that Procreate works on older iPads. If not, maybe Concepts or Sketchbook. Similarities between journey mapping and the practice of storyboards? Absolutely. The point of a journey map is really to show process, or if it's a customer journey or patient journey or something like that, build empathy and try to see from a different perspective and get everything out in one page. So storyboarding also, it depends on the framing. You can just have, in my mind, by a storyboard, you mean, you know, here's a space, or here's a scene, here's a scene, here's a scene, and we're working through a story. So it just depends on your jam. Let's see, I do concept mapping as part of my instruction. Yes, Casey's bringing the Zoom on. Paper, yeah, thanks, Laura. I forgot about paper. Paper is kind of out there from the get-go, so that might be a great rec for older iPads. David Sibbitt's Visual Meetings is another good book. Yes, Visual Meetings, he's got a trilogy, Visual Teams and Visual Leaders, I think. Yeah, I think Procreate is really great. MindNode, that's a program. Oh yes, Apple Notes. They just did an iPad update and now you can handwrite and it translates it to text in some programs. So that could be a really great UDL option depending on the application. If you wanted to draw something and then without having to change tools to text to type, you can write it out and it changes it to text for a screen reader. Let's see, Sketchbook, free, easy to use. Paper by 53. Jamboard, so that's by Google, and again, synchronous, free, as long as you have access to Google or somebody shares the settings right, everyone should be able to get on there and create, like you can cluster stickies, you can write on there, you can type, very cool. Ooh, Tayasui, I probably mispronounced that. Free sketches, free lightweight student version. Notion.io. I don't know about Notion.io, Curtis. Let's see. Awesome. Cool, this is great. I always love this because, again, the knowledge of all of us together is more powerful. Does anybody else want to unmute themselves, ask a question, share a resource or an experience?
Nick here again from ASU. Can you hear me?
Yes.
A lot of these, so I've noticed you've done a lot of work here and it looks great, but editing, like if I need to scale something, a lot of softwares are raster based and it's tricky. And if you got stuff in multiple layers, it's even trickier. So the program you're using, Fresco, I've never seen before. I'm downloading it now and it looks really cool. Does it allow you to select things regardless of the layer and group them and kind of tinker, move them around, scale them and stuff?
Yeah, so great question. So I'm using over here on the left, you can see the brush that is highlighted in blue is got a circle. It's a vector brush. So that allows you to work at any scale or resize to any scale, which is really helpful, especially in like Jamboard or Mural, because oftentimes things expand and you can make it any size without losing quality. The grouping, the editing it is limited right now. So I have my group selected and I can resize it or move it, but I cannot lasso, for example, like the tools piece and move it because it's part of a group. So that's a current limitation I would guess that they're working on. Does that answer your question, Nicholas?
It does, and it seems like with a lot of these programs, if you have a lot of practice with them, and if you know in advance kind of the direction you want to take your drawing, it helps you think, okay, I need to put this in its own group or layer first, so that way I can edit it later. But
yeah. And I think that you're talking about an important thing is thinking ahead of time about, are these just notes for myself? Are these live scribe notes that people see appearing, and so their expectations for perfection are different than if it were a studio piece? And how can I make my workflow easy? And that's like a whole nother hour and a half is workflows. Freeform visual idea tools and visual production tools. I feel like that's conceptual more than anything, but I don't know. Tom, I'd welcome if you want to unmute and kind of expand a little bit. I know we only have a couple minutes left.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I struggle with as I'm trying to produce things is, there's a lot of the same sort of things that allow you to play with ideas visually, the kind of stuff that you're doing. And then you want to take those ideas and you want to share them in a quote unquote more professional manner, short of hiring a graphic artist to completely redo all of these, graphics in Illustrator or something like that. There's really not an easy way to translate from one level to the other. And I don't know if there's technical reasons for that, or if when I say conceptual reasons, I mean, this is what this program is for. Stop trying to make it do something else kind of questions. That's what I'm talking about when I say conceptual region. Quit banging this square peg into the round hole.
Yeah, I don't know. Does anybody, I know we have 1 minute left. If anybody has an insight or idea that they want to respond with. I
always ask the unanswerable question.
Right. I would say this is a great call to action for us to try to think creatively about what tools we have and like what's the purpose. So like you think about the noun project, or how could I use stock photos to help communicate something and embed it in, and what other tools are out there that can help make it look more produced. But I don't know. I don't really know. I like your question.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, I talk a lot about this transition from industrial communications to digital communications, and how in digital communications you have much more of a free form. The kind of stuff you're doing is more the norm when it comes to digital communications, as opposed to we need to get a team of professional artists and draw this out in massive detail. And there's purpose to that too. Not all of us are built to process on that level either. But there's this crossover where you think you can do it and then you can't. I mean, as I'm working on my books, I try to, I'm like, okay, this great concept map, and now I have to somehow make it work in a 5x7 vertical space or something like that.
Yeah, and I think it's I love the quote of like, it's hardest to, like, the most elegant, simple is when you can't take anything else away and you still have the core of the thing. So that and I think to your point, it really brings forward how much time it takes to fiddle with these things. So pay your graphic designers.
Yeah, well, those of us who are also struggling authors don't really have huge funds for that, for a graphic design department.
Exactly,
So.
exactly. I'll keep thinking about that, Tom. We can follow up.
You know where to find me.
Yeah. Everybody, I know we're over, so thank you so much for your time. If you'd like to stick around, I'm happy to stick around for a few extra minutes to answer specific questions or talk. I dropped my website and Instagram and Twitter handle into the chat box. And just really appreciate you all being here, sharing ideas, and be creative if you want. Laura, anything else?
Wow. Thank you, Karina. This is just fantastic. And I'm leaving feeling more energized to pick up my pen, whether it's for me or for our community. Thank you so much for this fascinating session. Thank you everyone for joining. We can continue the conversation on Slack, on social media. I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye, everyone. Stop the recording. But if you want to hang around for a few more minutes and chat with Karina, you are more than welcome to. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.